Hello lovely viewers and welcome to Get Well, Stay Well on Revelation TV. As always, my name is Cyrus, you know that, but I'm delighted as always to be joined by Felicity. How are you?
Hi there, Si. I'm fine, thank you. Full of beautiful fresh air from the mountains, where I've just come down from my flat up in the mountains, and there's beautiful air, and it's really great because today we're doing oxygen, the breath of life. Yeah.
We certainly need that in our life, don't we, Felicity?
We certainly do. Can't live 2 seconds without it, really.
Why is oxygen so important?
Well, the oxygen is our life force. You know, God says in Scripture that He breathes the breath of life into us. And we know we see children born and we see people die, that the breath is the vital thing coming in and going out of this life. And we really need to keep oxygenated to keep well while we're here. And the oxygen levels are actually dropping in our world, you know, as the planet is deteriorating a little bit. And so people are very short of oxygen, especially now in our 21st century lifestyle, where people are hunched over their computers and, you know, watching TV. They're not getting out as much. The children are not doing as much sport at school as they used to do. So basically, we're quite deoxygenated. And two of the things that really we need to do with the body is to keep alkalized and oxygenated.
What is alkalized, Felicity?
Alkalized is we have a pH balance, as you know. We have a scale from 1 to 14. 1 is very acid, 14 is very alkaline. And we need to have a homeostasis. We need to have a balance of about 7.365. And when the blood and our cells are operating at that level, we're well. When we get acid, which we do from stress and from toxin, then we get acid and the whole body is thrown out of kilter. And so we're acid, and then we add to that a lack of oxygen. And this is why the body makes cancer and other diseases.
The diet is also very, very important, and we need to really watch what foods we're eating and what foods we shouldn't be eating as well, isn't it?
That's right, because we have to alkalize the body, and the best way we can do that is vegetables. And when we have them fresh and raw, of course, we get the oxygen in them. When we cook food, of course, we lose the oxygen out of the food. Like we cook food, it gets dry, we lose the water content, and we also lose the oxygen content. So we need that electrical charge and the oxygen in our food and our drinks. This is why we juice. Because
and that's what we're going to be talking about today, isn't it? Raw food, eating the right diet, fruits and vegetables. It's so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what do you think if we start with the scripture today, Felicity?
I think that's a good idea. Let's turn to Genesis 2. Genesis 2, we're going to bring that up, yes.
So that's Genesis 2, 7. Okay, let's take it.
And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living thing. And then verse 8, the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And 9, and out of the ground the Lord God made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So here we are right at the beginning of the Bible, in the first book, 2nd chapter. We're told that we have choices. We can choose between the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And man made mistakes. You know, Eve got the apple, as we all know, and tempted Adam with it. And the consequence of their bad choice was they got thrown out of the Garden of Eden, and we have all suffered ever since. And then in our turn, we have all rebelled and done the wrong things, made the bad choices, and we really live with the consequences. So it's the same with our eating. When we go back to eating the things that God told us to eat, in Genesis 1:29 and 30, I think we might have a scripture up for that as well. Genesis 1:29 and 30, where God says, "See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed, and to you it shall be for food." And then 30, "Also to every beast of the earth and every bird of the air, And to everything that creeps on the earth in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food, and it was so. And so you see, God has given us the right plan for our food right there.
Yeah.
And have we listened? Have we really taken notice? No, we haven't. You know, we have cooked food, and we're eating all the wrong things. And so this is why we have such an epidemic of disease. And so when I was ill myself and, you know, went to train, of course, I realized, my goodness me, we're getting right back to the Bible. It's exactly what God said, because at these natural health centers where they get people well from all kinds of diseases, when they go back on the green plant and they go back on the living nutrients, in fact, people do get well because their immune system rebuilds.
Now, what about when you're looking to transform your diet and you've done that change? Is it easy then to maintain the right diet?
Well, yes, it is. It's very easy, because as soon as you start to feel well, you don't want to go back to the old ways. And to begin with, you know, you long for the chocolate bar or the egg and bacon or something. But as you realize, you have more energy when you're on the living foods. You know, we all know about Christmas lunch. We have this heavy meal and we all want to go to sleep afterwards. And really, our bodies having to work so hard to digest that mixture of food and cooked food. When we have a salad for lunch, or we have an avocado, or we have a delicious juice, you feel energized. You don't feel like going to sleep.
So for any of our viewers who are watching today's program, what advice would you give them? Because obviously their whole life they might have been eating the wrong diet, and they're watching our program today and they say, hey, this sounds good, I want to make changes in my life and I want to live longer. Where's a good starting point for them?
Well, I hope they don't wait as long as I did, because I had to wait a long time and before I discovered the truth. When my daughter died of cancer in 1989, and suddenly we were brought up with a round turn as to what we were doing with our lives. And then I got pancreatic cancer myself. And then I started learning and going to these institutes. I was taught in a church in Holy Trinity, Brompton in London, about the Genesis 1:29:30 diet. And of course, lo and behold, God's word is always right. So I had a very quick learning turnaround and went to train around the world. I trained in America and New Zealand and South Africa and Australia and all over the place. And everyone who knows about natural food and healthy lifestyle is saying the same thing. You go back to this vegan food. So, you know, they call it by all different kinds of names, all different kinds of diets, and a lot of money is made out of this. In fact, all you need is to go back to Genesis and read the real word from God. And people do heal, and I healed myself. So I know it's true. I've walked the walk as well as talking the talk.
Excellent. I think that is important as well for our viewers to relate to someone who has gone through everything like you have and experienced. It's not just doing the research and talking about it. You've been there, you've done it. And
that's right. And you do feel better as you gradually get life more onto the raw food diet. And so when you say people are tempted to come off it, yes, of course they are to start with, because it seems so strange and new. But as they realize they're feeling so much better, you know, they really don't want to go back to it. I know that if I went back to coffee and cheese and all these things, I would really be ill again. So in the long run, you don't do it.
Okay, well, today's subject is oxygen, the breath of life. Let's take a look at our first clip and let's see, why is oxygen so important?
Oxygen is probably the most important thing that you need, more than food, water, even hugs. You can go weeks without food, you can go maybe days without water, but within 10 to 15 minutes of being deprived of oxygen, your brain dies. But have you ever wondered, exactly why do I need this oxygen to survive? I'm here to tell you. So oxygen is the most abundant element on planet Earth. It makes up 23% of the atmosphere, 89% of all of the Earth's water, and about 47% of the Earth's crust. And it's lucky that it is in such abundant supply, because not just you need it to survive, but almost all living things, with the exception of anaerobic life, of course, need oxygen to survive. Now wait, you say, what about plants? Plants don't need oxygen, they give off oxygen. That's where we get our oxygen from. That is true photosynthesis does produce oxygen as a byproduct, and you do take that oxygen in for yourself. But when the sun's not out and all the humans are sleeping and there is no photosynthesis, plants breathe. They actually gather oxygen from the air and from the soil through their roots, which they use to break down sugars to use for energy. It's a process called cellular respiration, and you do the exact same thing. In fact, now we've reached the first reason why you need oxygen to survive: cellular respiration. In cells throughout your body, there's all manner of functions and processes being carried out, and all of this stuff is powered by cellular respiration, where carbohydrates are broken down in the presence of oxygen into something called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. Now, ATP is an energy source that can be used for just about any function by just about any cell in the body. It's kind of like the common currency of all cellular processes. So you can think of cellular respiration as the process of converting carbohydrates into ATP in a similar way where foreign currencies are converted to dollars at the cambio. You can take those dollars and use them in any cell you like. Cellular respiration also produces a couple of byproducts as well, namely CO2, carbon dioxide, H2O, water, and heat. And that heat is the second reason you need oxygen to survive. See, since all of our cellular processes are being fueled by this oxygen that's carrying out cellular respiration and also producing heat, it's pretty clever and efficient to use that heat to warm said body. So everything we do, from thinking to running to going like this, uses cellular respiration and thus produces heat, which keeps our body temperature at a nice warm toasty state. But let's get back to those byproducts again. Remember, you produce carbon dioxide and excess water during cellular respiration, and your body has to get rid of that stuff somehow. So let's think. If you need to take in oxygen from the environment and you need to get rid of waste CO2 and excess water, what could you possibly do that would lick both of these at the same time? Breathing.
Breathing, so simple, so important. It's interesting because, like they said on the clip, we can be days and weeks without food and water, but we can only be minutes without breathing.
That's absolutely right, yes. I mean, the water we do need, I would say we can survive a day or so without water, but not much longer, really. But the oxygen is absolutely vital, and I'm so happy living up in the mountains there because we do have this beautiful, really clean air up there. And it's very fresh, and I love to have the windows open and to oxygenate. And when people come to me on the Get Well, Stay Well weeks and they're not well, I've got a wonderful place for them to breathe this air. And also I've got an oxygen machine. And when the weather is bad, you know, it's a great idea when you're stuck indoors to have the oxygen machine, which is making oxygen for you. And you feel really happy. You get quite high, actually, on the oxygen. It's great fun. Do you remember that film Fame, you know, with the dancers? And if you go to any London show, they're really dancing their heads off.
Is that what you do with a bit of oxygen?
Absolutely, you do that. It's absolutely great. And the oxygen is amazing.
We must record that for our next show, Felicity.
It's not just our lungs, Si, but it's all the cells of the body that need the oxygen as well. And they have to get that through the bloodstream.
Yeah.
So when we exercise, we're actually oxygenating the body. It's not just the lungs, we're oxygenating the cells as well.
What about, you say you're living in the mountains, what about the plants and the trees around you? They're giving off oxygen also, aren't they?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, if you go into a forest, you have this wonderful rush of air around you. And, you know, this is why we should have more plants in our houses. It's a really good idea. I've got peace lilies, and you can have aloe vera and all kinds of lovely green plants. So they do actually absorb the electromagnetic radiation as well. So it's a really good idea to have one beside your computer, as I have. And I know that it keeps me much more oxygenated than I would otherwise. Because, you know, you can spend hours sitting on the computer, can't you? And you know, you're not really getting up and moving as we should do every hour.
So people working in garden centres, they're one of the healthiest people.
They're absolutely, and they're also the happiest people. Do you notice that? People who are working with the land, because they're much more relaxed, they're taking exercise, And
fresh
I think
air
people
and
get
everything as well, yeah.
very tense when they're not taking exercise. I remember when I used to play a lot of golf and tennis when I was younger. And, you know, it's very relaxing to take the exercise. We need to do that because we have this fight or flight syndrome, you know, when we're under stress. So we're all sort of keyed up for the next attack of some kind. Like working with you, really, Si. You know, I'm keyed up for the next attack.
Thank you, Felicity Corbin-Wheeler.
So there we
Auntie
go.
Felicity.
You see, we have to really get some exercise, get out and get rid of all that tension. So it's really...
Is that why you go running after our show, Felicity?
Absolutely, yes, go running out of sight.
But it's true, exactly, it's absolutely true what you say, because we all live a very stressful life and everything, but it's how we deal with that stress. It's not healthy, is it, for us to just keep that stress built up inside, but we need to find a way of releasing that. And we do that by exercise.
That's right, exercise is the great one. Dancing, you know, dancing at home, amazing, but just get moving, even with the rebounder, of course, which I always advocate. I think that's a great thing. So, yeah, we've got to keep moving, guys.
Talk to me about cellular respiration. What is that?
Well, our cells respond to everything that happens in our body, whether it's magnetically, chemically, hormonally, in any way. So what we eat, drink, breathe, wear, because even our clothes have an effect on our body. You know, when we're dressed in petrochemicals, which is nylon and terylene and all those man-made fibers, they are in fact off-gassing into our body, and we don't think about that. We think about electromagnetic radiation from computers and our mobile phones, but it's our clothes as well that can be making us toxic. So in our 21st century, you know, we are really living in a very toxic environment. And of course, the cells, we are trillions of cells, which are infinitely intelligently made by our Creator God. And we are only as well as our cells are. And people don't think about that, really. They sit down to have a meal and they think what's going to fill their stomachs and, you know, have a lovely sweet taste or something. But they don't think about scientifically what it's doing to their cells. And it's not their fault because they've never been taught. And although I did biology and all those things at school, we were never taught this sort of cell stuff. And it really, I think it's been the last 50 years, I suppose, that the microscopes have got so much more sophisticated. We're beginning to understand much more about the body with medical science. And, you know, the doctors are beginning to realize how amazingly intelligent we are, you know, like the eye, for instance, the way that we can see, the way we can hear. The ear is amazing. And so it couldn't possibly have come from some big bang, you know, that suddenly happened. We have a big bang, you don't get a Rolls Royce, you get a complete disaster, don't you?
Exactly. Talking about
I believe in creation.
The heat, the importance of heat for cellular respiratory. Would you say that's why if you're living in a hotter climate, you're more healthy?
Yes, because you're out in the fresh air. You know, we need the sunshine. This is another great thing. The sun is a tremendous healer. And we've been told how we must keep out of the sun. We must cover with sunscreen and all this, all these expensive creams and things. And in fact, we need the sun on our bodies to make the vitamin D, the natural vitamin D. And when we do get in the sunshine, we always feel much better. Obviously not to go and roast yourself in it, but, you know, use a bit of discernment and common sense. So I just go out early in the morning, I sunbathe out there, and later in the afternoon when it's not absolutely burning, scalding heat. But you can always get in the shade.
Okay, well, let's take a look at our next clip. This is how to oxygenate cells in your body. Let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Carrie Phillips. I'm an Eat and Energy Medicine certified practitioner, and today I'd like to share with you an exercise that helps to free the diaphragm and encourage well oxygenated cells in the body. One of the things that we know about oxygenated cells is that they are able to more effectively fight disease. From diseases like heart disease and cancer, they will not be able to take hold in a well oxygenated cell. So doing this exercise every day will be very helpful in supporting the overall health of your body in a very simple step that takes about less than 1 minute. So the way that we do this exercise is we take our left hand and we're going to place it right here at the bottom of our rib cage. The right hand comes on top of the rib cage. We're going to hug our arms into our sides while we're pushing our hands into our diaphragm. We're going to take a deep breath, hold our breath, and push out with the diaphragm. So we're holding, pushing out with the diaphragm, in with our hands, and hold. Kind of picture we're squeezing a sponge and the air is just going out into our cells, that oxygen. And breathe out. Breathe in, push in with the hands, out with the diaphragm. Give yourself a good hug. Breathe out. Doesn't matter how long you're holding your breath, just make sure you're not becoming lightheaded when you do this. We'll do it one more time. Breathe in, hold your breath, press in with the hands, out with the diaphragm. Breathe out and down. Add this exercise to your daily energy routine or do it anytime during the day to help oxygenate the body and encourage good health.
Hi viewers, welcome back. It's just something so simple really, isn't it?
It's a very good exercise, that, because if people practice it, they can find that they really are pushing the oxygen into the cells. It's really, really interesting, and I think she's particularly good on that. Yeah.
Can you just demonstrate that for us, please?
I can indeed.
I don't know if they'll see your arms because
Right.
you're blending into the sofa today.
I know,
with your,
all in
red
red.
outfit.
Your mother told me I should wear red today, so I'm wearing red. Anyway, you want to push this here, as she said, and take the breath, hold it, and you can feel that you're forcing the oxygen into the cells. So we have to do that. And of course, going back to food, you know, cooking food causes leukocytosis in the body because the cooked food is no longer recognized as real food by the cells. And so we get a rush of white blood cells. That's why it's called leukocytosis. The white blood cells rush to fight the invader, and so we get inflammation in the body. So we really have to learn to get onto the raw foods, and of course the easiest way to get the raw foods done, unless you want to eat a plate of raw broccoli or raw cauliflower or something, is really to juice.
That is literally as simple as that, isn't it? Because it's very difficult to eat the quantities of fruits and vegetables that we talk about on our show, but it's so easy. It's much easier to juice it.
And every day that you don't take in the right enzymes for the cells, of course your cells are beginning to die. They start degenerating quite seriously. And so however much you juice, you can never really make up for the times that you didn't juice beforehand. You never, you know, you're eating for tomorrow, really. You're eating so that you will have a better body for the future. And this is why people who get on the raw food diet can suddenly look younger than they did, because all the time we're either making younger cells or older cells. So, you know, when you have the hamburger and the Coke and the coffee and everything, we are actually making older cells for the future. And of course alcohol dries out cells. Interesting. Yeah. So alcohol has got, you know, the sugar content in it, which is very toxic in the body, but it also has, you know, if you put alcohol in your hands, it toughens them up.
Yes.
We used to do that for sport. But you think when you're drinking the alcohol, you're actually toughening the organs inside, the digestive organs, so no wonder we have problems. So really important to get back to basics here.
Yeah, because there are people who obviously have problems with alcohol. What sort of advice would you give them? Where is a good starting point to start?
Well, you know, basically it's depression, and so you want escapism. And it's also a sugar addiction. So if you can get onto some fruit instead, it does actually satisfy that craving for the sugar. So dates are a healthy alternative, for instance. And you can get these gorgeous dates that taste really wonderful. Peaches, all the fruit really. And that gives you the sugar that you're craving. So if people have got that problem, that's what I advise them to do, as well as, of course, addressing the psychological problem and the depression, which, you know, we're living in very difficult times, obviously, economically, socially, politically. And so really there is cause to be depressed. You know, you'd be crazy not to be depressed, really, if you think about it. But as Christians, we know that, you know, Jesus is coming back, that there is going to be an end to all this. And we really have to keep our eyes on the Lord and keep positive, and then we will get through these times.
Now, when we talk about our health and we talk about changes, it's a lifestyle change, really, isn't it? We're not only saying they need to change their diet or they need to do exercise. It's a mixture of a little bit of everything, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's a physical detox and a mental detox and a spiritual detox, really. So, you know, when people come on the weeks, when they arrive, they're usually very tired and worn out, and by the end of the week, they feel very much better because we've been exercising, we've been in the fresh air, they've been on the juices, and you know, it works. These weeks, even just 1 week works.
Yeah.
And of course, in America, people go for 3 weeks at a time, and it's jolly expensive, and people really can't afford to go to America to start with, and they can't afford to be there. It's about $5,000 a week. But on the other hand, you know, what I'm trying to do is do this in an inexpensive form here in Europe, so people can get the essence of the course, you know, the nutrition, the exercise, the water, putting everything together in an inexpensive way, and also download the e-course, which is the cheapest way of doing it.
We are blessed with the modern sites of technology as well, aren't we?
Absolutely, it's wonderful.
And the education is key as well. When we know things like the internet, for example, we can literally go on the internet and do our own research. Felicity, I'd like to show our viewers a clip, if we may. If you're wondering that you want to change your life and you want to change your diet, this is an introduction into a raw food diet. Let's take a look.
So, I'm going to share with you my top 10 tips on how you can start a raw food diet. And I say diet, but it is actually a lifestyle, because in order for you to be healthy and happy, vibrant and shining the way you want to feel, you have to incorporate this into your lifestyle. My number 1 tip on how to start a raw foods diet is simply to stock up with as many fruits and vegetables in your house as you possibly can. Eat as much fruit and as many vegetables as you possibly want. This is an unlimited lifestyle. It is a lifestyle of abundance. You don't want to be limiting yourself, but you want to be free with food. So the more that you stock up your house with food, the more you will be inclined to eat the food that is there. Number 2, make your first meal of the day a juice or a smoothie. When you wake up, have a big glass of water, yes, but always make your first breakfast or your meal of the day a 32-ounce or a 64-ounce jar of a juice or a smoothie. This will help keep you hydrated. It will give you simple sugars from the fruits that will keep you carved up and ready to go, and it will take away that morning hunger. It's just great. If you're looking for ideas on recipes, you can try my Holy Grail juice, my V8 juice. You can try my orange spinach basil smoothie. There are tons of combinations out there, but start off your day with a juice or a smoothie. My 3rd tip is to make your second meal of the day a humongous platter of fruit. You can eat any fruit that you want. You can eat a mixed bowl of a beautiful rainbow bowl of fruit, or you can mono meal on just 1 fruit. But make sure that you eat enough, because you want to have enough carbohydrates to keep you fueled throughout the day.
Hi viewers, welcome back. That's just an introduction there in eating raw foods, and it's just a simple case of putting it all together.
Yes, it is. It's really, you know, the alkalizing and the oxygenation are really important. And in 1931, there was a Dr. Otto Warburg who won the Nobel Peace Prize for discovering how important oxygen is in our cells. And he's the doctor of, really started this thing on oxygenizing the body. And he said that the oxygen was absolutely essential to avoid getting the cells deteriorating. So we have to come back to oxygenating our food as much as we can. And Dr. Otto Warburg was German, very, very interesting doctor. And I think we ought to have a little look at a picture of him, maybe.
Yeah, we'll talk about Otto in a moment, if we may, but I just want to talk about the clip that we've just seen with Christina.
Okay.
She's talking about the best ways and the tips in order to start a raw diet. Let's go through her steps, shall we?
Right, yes.
So she's talking about eat as many fruits and vegetables as possible.
Yes.
Why is that important for us?
Well, that's our way of getting the oxygen into our bodies, and also the living enzymes that are in the raw food. You know, we're not going to get them in any other way. So she has a really raw lifestyle herself. She's a very bright girl, and she started a cooperative with some girlfriends, and they actually grow this organic food. And of course, she makes the TV program. She's really good at doing that and promoting the thing. So Christina's great, and she really does run 6 miles a day, apparently. And I'm really impressed with her vitality.
Because some of the viewers might be watching us today and thinking, or maybe some of the gentlemen out there might be thinking, a raw food diet, I mean, how's that going to give me enough energy for my day? I mean, you might get some people who are doing some physical work and thinking, that's not going to keep me energized throughout the day to eat some fruits and vegetables. Does it?
But it does, you see, because the top athletes are very often vegan, and people are so impressed with that, and they've got hard, lean muscle. You know, they're not carrying any fat, and these guys, the top triathletes, and it really works. And you can see she looks great as well. She's not got an ounce of fat on her, and she looks healthy. Her eyes are sparkling, her skin is good, you know, the hair is shiny. And yeah, we are our strongest, like Daniel in the Bible, you know, in Daniel 1, where the young men who were obviously at their peak of physical fitness, you know, were asked to just stay on the fruit and the vegetables and the water instead of the king's rich diet. So there's no doubt about it, it's the way to be fit for the men and the women.
So let's talk about, she mentioned on the clip there, the first meal or first thing that she has in the day in the morning is a juice or a smoothie. Big
Glass of water first, and then you go straight into breakfast, which is a green juice, which is what I do.
What is your ideal favourite recipe for a smoothie?
Oh, I always do cucumber, apple, and a lemon, and then I'll put in whatever else I have. This morning I had pineapple as well. You can do so many of the green things, you know. I put a little bit of wheatgrass in, a little bit of spirulina, a little bit of chlorella. So you just stir those, which are in a powder form, into the juice. But basically, cucumber, you can use celery as well. But that's the basic green juice. And another thing I like very much is the baking soda. This is one done by an American company. And this has not got aluminium in it like ordinary baking soda. So I take a teaspoon or maybe even half a teaspoon of that in a glass of water like that, stir it up. So it's a white mixture, it looks like milk. And in fact, that alkalizes the body. It's sodium bicarbonate, and it's a wonderful alkalizer.
And what benefits does our body receive from that?
Well, that alkalizes all the cells. So you start detoxing, cleansing the cells, and really giving them the pH balance that they need, because we live in a stressful world where we're making more acid, you know, from what we eat, drink, breathe, think. It's all acid stuff. Turn on the news, you know, and you get a flood of acid in the body. You see what's happening around the world. So we do need to keep alkaline. And if I do that in the morning, when I remember to do that first thing, you know, water and your bicarbonate of soda, and then you get into your green juices, and you feel amazing.
And then in the middle of the day or towards the evening to do some exercise as well. It's important to just keep the body active.
Yeah.
And then that obviously makes you hungry, and then you have your dinner. What would be an ideal dinner for you?
Well, an ideal dinner would be vegetables. I love having the juice, and then I'll do something with citrus fruit, because I love the grapefruit particularly, this gorgeous grapefruit here. Grapefruit and satsumas, which are slightly less acid than orange. Then I can make a homemade soup with beautiful vegetables, leek and garlic, and I put some potatoes and carrots and all the vegetables that I can lay my hands on down at the market, you know, the fresh ones. And so that's lovely to have a vegetable soup. And of course you had to slightly simmer those to soften them enough to make them into a soup. Or you can have a plate of beautiful raw vegetables. And when I do go to a restaurant, very often, instead of having to order, you know, the set thing, which is chicken or duck or fish or whatever, you can say, look, I'm on a special diet, will you please bring me a plate of just vegetables, beautifully cooked vegetables.
I think that's the point there. Some of the viewers might think, what do I do when I go out for dinner? I mean, how easy, what sort of access do I have to good food?
I always choose the soup. They usually have a good soup on. And you can have avocado pear, you can have melon to start with. All that's, you know, fairly acceptable in any ordinary restaurant. And then go into your plate of vegetables, or occasionally have a little bit of fish. That's fine. But it's what you do most of the time that counts. You know, I go out and I have a fish sometimes with the girls, but it's what I do most of the time. And I'm at home, I'm doing the green juices, and I'm doing also beetroot juice and pineapple juice, you know, rainbow of juices, which is so lovely and so delicious.
I think that's the point there is a lot of variety out there, and it's just the case of trying different recipes at the same time, because it's not boring to eat healthy, is it?
No, it's not. It's really boring to eat ghastly food that's going to make you feel ill, you know. And if I am out and I'm absolutely stuck and I haven't got juices with me and I have to have other things that I've given up now, I notice immediately in my body, I notice that was not a good idea, you know.
What about when you change your diet and you change your friends in a way as well? You get like-minded people, and you also use that to motivate each other.
Well, you see, it's like getting born again. You lose the friends who were into the booze and into all the bad things that you were into years ago, you know. And maybe the very worldly friends, because when you get born again, you want to be with Christians, you want to be with someone nice who you can talk about important things with. And so then when you get into the raw food lifestyle, yeah, it's a whole new world, because you're starting to make friends, the organic farmers, the people who are the trainers, you know, really interesting people who are on your wavelengths. Yeah. And so you find your people. And it's then, you know, life gets really interesting, really good.
And finally, what about sleep? How many hours is the ideal amount that we should be sleeping per night?
Well, it depends. You know, obviously babies need a lot of sleep, and as we grow up, and teenagers need hours and hours of sleep, of course, because they're handling all this. They're trying to process what they're going to do in life and how they're going to
It's not about the late nights or anything, is it, Felicity?
Well, it's about that as well, Si, as you well know. But as you get older, you need less sleep, but you certainly need to sleep. And I find the patch is really good for that. You know, there's wonderful patches that I use. And I try not to have any kind of sleeping pills or anything like that, because they're really bad. They make acid in the body. Any drug that you take does create acidity in the body. So we try to do everything naturally. And if I can't sleep at night, I will just get up and read. I don't turn the TV on, because that is this flashing light from the TV is really bad and keeps you awake. But if you read a book, read the Bible, read the Psalms, read something lovely and calming, and then eventually the eyes will drop and you will want to go to sleep. But it's really important to get enough sleep. Yeah.
Okay, earlier in the show you mentioned about Otto Warburg. Who is Otto Warburg, and why is he so important?
Well, he's one of my great heroes. He was a German doctor who lived a long time ago, and in 1931 he won the Nobel Peace Prize, and you'll see here that he talked about alkalizing the body, he talked about oxygenating the body, and really Otto Warburg started the raw food movement in recent times, because people were starting to get well. You know, he was about the same time as Dr. Max Gerson with the Gerson therapy. And these guys really had a breakthrough coming back to health. So you can see there the red down on the left, you can see the red scale, which is very, very acid, and then going right the way up to the most alkaline, which is 0.14. So you go from 0 or 1 to 14, and you can see that the happy balance has got a green color in the middle there, which is a bit of a clue that perhaps we should be eating lots of green food. But anyway, that's basically what Otto Warburg taught, and it's really important to remember these heroes who have led this movement, and they've all been really top doctors, and they have come to realize that the body does respond to this living food diet.
What about the alcohol? Is it alkaline drops that there are available?
No, you can get oxygen drops.
Oxygen drops, sorry.
These little ones are oxygen drops, and you can get them off Amazon from, I don't stock them, but you can get these, and it's really great to put a few drops in water or in juice, because you can taste the difference. I mean, the oxygen it really works in the body. The other thing is to get a SOTA oxygen machine, the ozonator that I've got, that I absolutely love. I've only had that about a month, and I think it's absolutely great. And the oxygen machine, I've got one called Invacare, which I've had for, years, 10 years, I would think. And really good for building up the body, building up the oxygen in the body. Because when we're oxygenated and we're alkalized, we're going to get well and we're going to stay well.
Okay.
Very exciting.
Going back to Otto Warburg, we've got a clip about him. It was from a radio interview talking about Otto Warburg. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look, and we'll be right back.
Well, the first thing is cancer is not a foreign invader. Everybody thinks it's a foreign invader coming in like a virus, bacteria. It's not. This was proven. It's not. There's no such thing as a cancer virus, no such thing as a cancer bacteria. The thing with cancer, and all of my research starts with a Nobel Prize winner named Otto Warburg, MD, PhD. Burn that name into your memory, because he gets all the credit for this. Otto Warburg, MD, PhD, Nobel Prize winner in 1931, the best biochemist of the 20th century. And the sin today is the oncologists don't even know his name. In a nutshell, Daniel, he discovered the prime cause of cancer is one thing: lack of oxygen to the cell. That is not saying put more oxygen in the bloodstream and I got it solved. Proof of this is athletes all over the world get cancer all the time. Okay? So it's the cellular transfers through the cell membrane. Now, this was proven in 1953 with Goldblatt and Cameron in America. Warburg was German. He showed this, but it was confirmed here, and it was double-checked in another experiment in America in 1955. Every time you decrease cellular oxygen by about a third, 35%, for a sustained period of time, which means it can go down and then go back to normal. But if it keeps going down and back to normal over time, cancer each and every time comes.
Hi there, welcome back. Just showing the importance of Otto Warburg. I mean, he's well known. He's Nobel Prize winner as well, isn't he?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, I think he won 2 of them. And so he was about the same time as Linus Pauling, who's another great hero of mine, and of course Dr. Max Gerson. So they really brought about this movement back towards health, and we're all so ignorant about this stuff. And I remember when I was a little girl in South Africa, and our vicar's wife was all into this. She had an organic garden that she grew everything in, and we all used to think, how strange. But now, here am I sitting on TV saying it's absolutely right. And I had to live and learn, and I think we all do. And I would just say to people, try it for a couple of weeks and see how your health improves. And once you've got onto this lifestyle, you feel so good. I think it's the energy side that, you get this amazing amount of energy, and it lifts the spirits as well. You feel much happier.
Yeah, I think because I have to admit, since starting the programs with you for Get Well, Stay Well, I'm juicing, and I really do notice the energy, and I notice I don't know, it gives you peace as well. It affects so much psychologically your mind.
Definitely.
We all live a stressful life, but when you decide to start juicing, you are literally deciding to change the way that change your lifestyle changes as well. And it all works hand in hand, because you decide to juice and you think, I'm making the effort to juice, so I need to make the effort to exercise as well. And it all kind of has a knock-on effect, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and it's really good with the children, because you notice the children are so much calmer and happier. You know, when they're on a lot of sugar foods, they will literally bounce off the walls, you know, climbing the curtains, because their mothers are feeding them so much sugar, and they've really got hyperactive. There's the milk, which gives them the mucoid plaque, and the sugar, which makes them hyperactive. So when you can get the children on this young, it really is wonderful. Because you're building healthy cells for the future, you know.
Because we're talking about the raw food diet, we're talking about the fresh fruits, the fresh vegetables. And what about growing it yourself as well? That's also a very fun way to get the children involved, isn't it?
Fantastic. And I know your daughter goes and works on the farm, does she, with her grandfather?
She sure does, yeah.
You know, this is wonderful. And I was very lucky, because my father also loved to grow things. You know, when he retired, he had time, and he grew the most fantastic fruit and tomatoes, I remember, because living in Jersey, of course, we have the famous Jersey Royal, the potato, and the Jersey tomatoes, which are gorgeous. And when you have real tomato juice, you know, you juice real tomatoes that you've grown, it tastes completely different to anything out of a tin or pack.
Going back towards the foods that we should and shouldn't be eating, what are your thoughts on eating potatoes, shall we say?
Well, potatoes are a filler. They do reduce to glucose in the body chemically. So some people say that that's not a very clever thing to do. Say you're fighting cancer and you want to keep off sugar. But Dr. Patrick Vickers, who I've worked with in America and will be working with again, these doctors are saying that, you know, the raw food diet has to be supplemented with cooked vegetables. And when I make my vegetable soup we were talking about, I do put potatoes in. And I don't think that potatoes are bad. I think the bad sugar for you is obviously the refined sugar, the white sugar, and the sort of biscuits and cakes and stuff that, you know, we associate with the Western diet. But, you know, you've got to have some glucose, this ATP thing they're talking about, you know, the adenotriphosphate. That is the energy in our bodies. And so, you know, I think potatoes are fine. And a baked potato, I would not say chips, because of course they're saturated in fat and they're fried. But a baked potato in its jacket, and the lovely Jersey Royals, you know, the little baby ones, absolutely gorgeous.
What are your thoughts on pasta?
Well, pasta is actually flour and water, isn't it? So flour and water makes glue, and, you know, we go through this thing again with the kindergarten children who are happily sitting there mixing their flour and their water together, making lovely glue and sticking things together. And in fact, when we eat pasta, we're doing exactly the same to our intestines. So it's not a clever thing to do, although, of course, athletes have been told in the past, you know, have a good pasta meal before you run the marathon. But my son and a lot of athletes now are learning to eat the fresh fruit and vegetables instead. So we live and learn and gradually move on to it. But I must say I was very impressed with the vegan athletes who I met when I was training. We had quite a few guys come and lecture to us who were, you know, top vegan athletes. And literally the best. Also bodybuilders. You know, Philip Day was a bodybuilder. Ty Bollinger was a bodybuilder. These guys were huge. And then they suddenly realized that they needed to get their life in order, and they moved on to a raw diet. So now they've got the physique, they've got, you know, they've got super strong bones, and they intend to keep that physique as they get older, which is great.
So let's talk about exercise. Exercise is something that obviously we talk about lifestyle change and eating the right foods, but also exercise. How easy is exercise? I mean, can we just literally go outside and have a walk around the block? Is that a good start?
That's a very good start, absolutely. And the thing is to do something you enjoy. So if you can get out with a few other people and walk or play sport, obviously that's great. And for the children, if they can get into team games, then it makes it much more fun. And I've always played a lot of team sport and loved it. So I think if people are at home and they're maybe in England and at the moment when the weather's not too good, and you can certainly rebound.
We're just watching here. This is a rebounder. Let's just take a look. I mean, it's just as simple. It's just a trampoline, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's just a little rebounder there, and she's just gently moving on it. And if you're really very poorly, you can just sit on it and just bounce a little bit, and that just gets the lymph moving. This is, the heart is the pump for the blood, but the lymph in our body, the lymph does not have a pump, so we have to move the body in order to clean our lymph.
And what about the circulation? It helps the circulation in our body as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and it's great fun, yeah. And you see, you can go wild on that rebounder as well. You can do all kinds of
But like we're seeing on screen at the moment, it looks very, very simple. It doesn't matter what age you are, what size you are, how many years ago you last exercised. It's just a case of just rocking left and right, really. And I think it's for anybody.
They also have a rail for people who are a little bit frail. They have a sort of bar that can be fitted onto the machine so that you've got something to hold on to as well. But you should see my grandchildren on that. It's enormous fun, flying in the air.
What other exercise tips can you advise to our viewers?
Well, as I said, sport is the great thing, team sport. And of course, exercising of the stretching exercises. They say that you should do cardiovascular exercise, which means getting out of breath. Running, for instance, jogging, walking, whatever you can manage. You can obviously, I'm sure you can run, and do all these things. At my age, I'm happy just walking now.
Yeah.
And you can do power walking. I think we've shown some programs on power walking where you really walk with a purpose.
Yeah.
So that's really good.
It's interesting because when I was younger, I used to play a lot of football, but I was never a keen runner, to be honest. But since I've changed my diet and I'm doing a lot more running now, and I'm using the technology with me as well, because you have this, you can download the app on your mobile phone and it shows the map that you've done, and you use the same circuit and you beat your time each, and it's incredible, the feeling from one day to another. You can really feel the stamina, the more you do, the more stamina that you have.
That's really
You really
good.
notice the difference.
That's terrific. And to use the app in that way is really good, because I think we need encouragement, we need inspiration, don't we?
Motivation,
and
that's
to
right.
beat your own personal best all the time, is really good, because then you've got a goal, haven't you?
You have indeed.
Yeah.
Felicity, we're coming towards the end of today's programme. Just summarise, why is oxygen important for us?
Okay, well, we started talking about the breath of life and how God gives us the breath of life, which just gets us going on our path here on Earth. It's really important that we learn to oxygenate the body with the freshest air we can possibly breathe. So you want to get out of town, out of pollution, and into beautiful fresh air when you can. And also to get the oxygen into the cells through our living food and our juices.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Felicity, we have come towards the end of today's programme. So as always, thank you so much indeed for joining us today.
Great to be with you.
Thank you also to our viewers for joining us. Remember, we have shown a number of clips and discussed various pieces of different information. So remember, Revelation TV has a catch-up service. It's on our website. It's www.revelationtv.com. We're also on YouTube. It's youtube.com/RTV Europe. We're on all the social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com. We're on Twitter, twitter.com/RevelationTV. So viewers, thank you ever so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you same time next week on Revelation. Take care, God bless, and have a wonderful day. Bye.